Well, Cody, National Signing Day was yesterday, and the fallout continues today, even for Texas, especially at the wide receiver position, as we have things going on with Chris Henry Jr. and Jaylen Lot that we are going to have to discuss, and not only what it means for recruiting on the national stage, but what it means for Texas and what the Longhorns might be thinking right now about their wide receiver core going into the 2026 class or going into the 2026 season based on some of the hints that Sark has given and context clues and some of the things that he said about how Texas is going to be allocating its money. We're going to talk about all that. First, though, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Man Eye Institute. See life better at the Man Eye Institute. You can give them a phone call today, 1-844-WOW-2020. 844-WOW-2020 is how you can reach the Man Eye Institute, whether you need glasses, whether you need LASIK, whether you need to help with your cataracts, anything to do with your eyes. Man, we're very lucky to have the Man Eye Institute here in Texas to be able to go for all of our vision needs. And we're very lucky to have them here on the show to be our presenting sponsor. So thank you to the Man Eye Institute. Please support us by supporting them. 844-WOW-2020. See life better at the Man Eye Institute. All right, Cody. Gosh, man, a lot to so the Chris Henry Jr. stuff is, to me, it's so wild that we have to me, what felt like out of the stone blue with Brian Hartline going to USF. And all you see from the Ohio State fans is just like, you could tell that they're shook and they're shocked, but even with losing such a great assistant coach, such a great coordinator, and a guy that, who's just this lineage that he's had of wide receivers at Ohio State is just, about all these players. Everybody knows that it's been wide receiver U, and it's Garrett Wilson, and it's Chris Olave, and it's Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it's Marvin Harrison Jr., and it's Emeka Egbuka, and it's like that's absurd. All those, it's like it's crazy to think that if you can just look around the NFL and just say, dude, there's a team that's pretty much been wide receiver U, and it hasn't been LSU, considering all the awesome players that LSU has put into the league. What he's been able to do there has been amazing, and so you can understand why, Chris Henry, who I went and looked on his X account, and Chris Henry, of course, Chris Henry Jr., the number one wide receiver in the country, formerly committed to Ohio State. Now, Cody will tell you the update about how it's looking now, but even up till like 2 days ago, he was still just retweeting all of the Ohio State propaganda, and just like it was like he was all on board. He's ready to go. All this. It's like this whole thing took him by giant surprise too. It had to. Where are we right now with him, and how does this fallout going as it relates to Texas? Because there was yesterday the report of the big money offer, the big NIL offer coming in for Chris Henry Jr. from Texas. Also, some big money coming in as far as an offer from Miami, but lurking in the background had been Oregon this whole time. But see, when you get to the Oregon stuff, then that's when the Jaylen Lot stuff starts to unfold. So can you unpack it and kind of just let us know where we are right now?
We'll just start here and put it that way. You brought it up. The Heartline thing literally shook Chris Henry, according to the sources from Rivals. And he has completely taken a step back, and he's had conversations with Oregon. I would say Texas was the team that was more so in the back, in the dark. Oregon's been trying to push for the flip regardless. Some people believe that Oregon had a chance at a flip regardless of the Heartline thing. I don't know if that has any merit at all, but it was out there. The report from Rivals about Chris Henry said, while the NIL offer Texas put on the table early Wednesday night was an eye-opener, sources believe the Longhorns were not really in the picture. Henry has never been to Austin. They pointed to USC as a contender down the stretch, and we kind of joked about this last night. I can't remember if we were on the show or off the show, but he says, same with West Virginia, who has taken a shot at the legacy prospect in the last 24 hours.
That was off the show whenever you said that was your cockamamie theory. It was going to that McAfee was going to pull out the big bucks for West Virginia, since he's he is a West Virginia legacy after all, right?
I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I made a graphic with Chris Henry maybe in a field goal spot and like a $4 million field goal kick or something like that. I tweeted that thing out yesterday, but regardless, the report has been from Wiltfong, from Spiegelman, from Gorney, from Biggs, from Rivals, prediction for Henry to go to Oregon. And the place that this gets muddy is that, yeah, Texas might not have been all in on Chris Henry for the last 2 years because he's been committed to Ohio State for the last 2 years to go play with Brian Hartline and Ryan Day. The report now changes to Jaylen Lot. And the Jaylen Lot news came out in the last hour. So there was an update part of the Chris Henry article over at Rivals. It said there's a source that believes if Oregon flips Henry, that things could alter with Lot. Lot's report was interesting because initially on Wednesday, it was like, oh, there's some contract language in his deal at Oregon and that he's going to sign. He'll end up signing by Friday. And there was reports that came out of some Oregon, I think 247 sites that basically said it's a done deal. Like the papers are signed. They just need to be faxed. Yada, all this stuff basically said it'll blow over. It is what it is. Well, within the last couple of hours, there's been reports that have come out again from Rivals that basically said if Henry does flip, if the latter is true, I'd keep an eye on Texas and USC for the Longhorns' legacy. Of course, his father, James Lot, has played for Texas, his mother as well. The report came from Wiltfong saying, I think more might be happening with Texas right now. Miami tried to push for Lot during the fall. LSU was a finalist as well, but they're going to circle back, and he plans to sign by Friday. Jaylen Lot does. And I guess my whole thought process here is, and Catch has brought it up on the board as well over at Orange Bloods. You guys should go check out Orange Bloods right now. There's a lot of conversation about this whole theory, coupled with the fact that Brandon Harris said in an interview on Wednesday that there's some more things coming down the pipeline, right? And this has been kind of the angle. And and Sark said it as well. And there was another receiver from Manfield that was in the conversation to go to Texas as well. And Michigan, he was committed to Michigan, and Texas was in there. He ends up going to Stanford this morning. So they're out there kind of sort of big game hunting at the wide receiver position. And if they don't hit on Henry and they don't hit on Jaylen Lot, Alex, the one position they actually didn't bring up in the portal was wide receiver. But if they're going this hard after Chris Henry and they're giving the biggest offer, remember the thing with Justice Terry a year ago was Texas put such a big offer on the table to Justice Terry that Georgia couldn't meet it. That's been the narrative. And if they put such a big offer on the table to Chris Henry and he just couldn't take it because he just didn't have the relationships as deep as he does at Oregon, and if they can't get Jaylen Lot off of going to Oregon, then there's just a big lump sum that they had offered to a wide receiver that there's theory that, well, what if Cam Coleman's in the portal from Auburn? Or what if Nick Marsh is in the portal from Michigan State, who's expected to be? Both 6'3", 6'4", alien-like freshmen and sophomores the last couple of years. To me, that just says they're getting a receiver regardless in the next 30 days.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that just wild that this whole time, whenever you look at this class, right, and you look at the wide receivers in this class, because you have Cohen Brown from Waxahachie, you have Chris Stewart from Missouri City, who weirdly had the odd flirtations with SMU for a while there, and then you have, depending on how you look at Jermaine Bishop Jr., right? I tend to I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about this in the office. I think you play him on offense. I know that people are gonna have their opinions on that, but I just, it does. It's not. Look, I think that those players are fine. I'm not quite. I haven't been quite as big on Chris Stewart as some others. I thought that Cohen Brown. I really liked what I've seen out of him. I've got to see him live. But I just and clearly, I think anybody that's watched Jermaine Bishop's highlights, right, just knows that he's a total epic playmaker. But he is just, what is he, like 155 pounds? And so it's an interesting group. And I just thought to myself, well, you can understand why they're not going big at wide receiver this year, because they have Michael Terry, they have Khalil Lockett, they have Jamie French, they have these guys who are coming up, right? And that was always just in the back of my head thinking, well, they're just figuring that, they have a young core right now. It's a relatively young core right now, right? You have two guys that are second-year guys in Wingo and Livingston. And then DeAndre Moore, of course, and you can have Emmett Mosley for another 2 years if you want. So you figure that you don't necessarily need to you don't necessarily need to be expending all these massive resources to the wide receiver position. It felt like you did that last year. But what they're signaling to us now, going after the biggest names that there even are, right? Going after Chris Henry Jr. is Jaylen Lot. Do you consider Jaylen Lot to be in the same category as Chris Henry Jr.? I don't personally consider him to, but I'd be interested to hear if you do.
So I'm actually on the board right now, and I was just checking it out, and Catch it literally just wrote, I don't think Lott and Henry are in the same galaxy from a spend standpoint.
I don't
Uh,
either.
and from a like year one output standpoint, I don't think they are.
Right. So
So I want, and you also like you lump in Zion Robinson, the receiver like I brought it before. Like,
how does Stanford get him? Is that some kind of Andrew Luck magic trick?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's got money these days, man. Like I know there's
Is he from Houston?
some levels of the money are different, but everybody has money. Like
Is Zion
everybody's
is Zion from Houston?
he's from Mansfield.
Okay. So Andrew whoa. Okay. Isn't there a
Where's Luck?
Mansfield by Dallas and a Mansfield by Houston?
Where's Andrew Luck from?
Houston,
Okay.
Mansfield. I thought that there's one by Dallas and one by Houston. I could be wrong. Mansfield, suburb of Dallas. Is there one by Houston too? Maybe not. Okay. So he's Dallas area. Why did I think Mansfield was also by Houston?
I don't know. You would know Texas, the cities better than I.
I don't know Houston or Dallas that well. Um. Anyway,
Regardless, they got themselves a 4-star wide receiver that Texas was in on. He's 6'3", 180 pounds. You look at Chris Henry, 6'4", 205 pounds. You look at Jaylen Lot, 6'1", 170 pounds, 6'6", 170 pounds. Like, there are three receivers that are kind of three different play styles, three different monetary categories, and three different expectations on day one. And I have a hard time deciphering what that should tell us. And to me, it just tells me the fact that they were able to put the money in front of Henry says that they're going to put the money in front of somebody in the portal. If they don't land Lot, because it seems like the ship has sailed on Henry. Obviously,
but here, if you have the money to go out and get a Henry, and you're going to be paying him the 7-figure sum, right? Which is what it's going to be. If it's going to be an offer that gets his attention, it's going to have to be something like that, right? If you're going up against Miami, who we saw go out, who's the gosh? I've already forgot the offensive lineman's name that they broke the bank on in this cycle.
Maui
What?
Goa, or who? Wait,
Miami?
did you say Senior Bowl?
No, Miami, who they broke the bank on in this last cycle. The offensive lineman that Rosenhaus did the deal with.
Maui Goa?
No, like he's like the number one
Oh
tackle.
no, you're talking about this. Sorry, Jackson Cantwell.
Cantwell. If we've seen the kinds of sums that Miami can throw around, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We've seen the kind of deals that they offer. It's Texas Tech like. So if Texas and Miami had similar offers, I begin to think. I mean, you say I just that's a lot more money than you would be giving Jaylen Lot. And I think Jaylen Lott's a good player. I think Texas could certainly use him. I wonder what this means that they're making this late push at wide receiver as they're beginning to do exit interviews and stuff like that with their players. I'm wondering, do you think that they've gone back around to French and Lockett and these other guys and talked to them about their expectations for this next season and whether or not maybe the pay for them could be a little bit more commiserate coming into next year with how much they played and stuff like that. And they might be worried about losing one or two of these guys now or something. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just here trying to read tea leaves and what it all means. And the other thing is, if you're willing to make a spend that big on Chris Henry Jr., why not just go get Cam Coleman?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of people in the Cam Coleman sweepstakes. I think that's the thing is it's one of those, we have this conversation every year, but it's kind of the the grass isn't always greener in the next phase. I know we're only going to have one portal this time, but remember the 2 portal windows, and we're like, well, wait till the next one, and the
No,
next
but
one's
that
like,
we never said that because I've always said that second portal thing was always kind of the
that's
Dennis
what I'm
King.
saying. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm using that analogy for is, all right, so let's say Chris Henry, for example, is 1.5 million. Let's say you
Okay.
offered him 1.5 million. He's maybe getting 1.1 or 1.2 from Oregon. You went over to bank. You got 1.5 in the bucket, right? Jaylen lost 500,000. You don't want to go to 600,000.
No, I don't.
You're thinking, I don't want to go to 600,000. I would rather wait, put that 600,000 towards Cam Coleman. All right. Cam Coleman's going to cost you what?
I think he would cost you 1.5 million too.
I don't think he will.
He's going to cost you quarterback money.
I think he's going to cost you. Let me look this up really quickly. So there was I had all the contract numbers, and what was it? Because I had Craver's numbers up the other day. Let me pull it up really quickly on the board. Great radio, but I think it was. So I think Jeremiah Smith was 2.5. I want to say the number was. It's not working. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Craver was 500,000. Concepcion was 900,000 in the portal last year. I know that.
Dude, if Concepcion's 900,000, dude, you could get Coleman for 1.5.
But what if Coleman's 2.2? What if you're in a duel and it's 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and all of a sudden you're spending $800,000 more than you wanted to spend in the first place on Henry, right?
Well,
and you could have had Jaylen Lot for 600,000. Are you willing to say we're just going to have to go deep in the troughs to do that? Like, what if they tap out? What if they tap out and they go, well, I guess we can just go take this kid from Buffalo?
Well, I don't know who the kid from Buffalo is.
He's a hypothetical character.
I don't think I don't think that the worst fallback plan is to say, all right, we just at this point we just need Jamie French to be Jamie French and Lockett to be Lockett and Michael Terry to become Michael Terry.
Well, I think Michael Terry is an interesting one
because forward.
I think Michael Terry is going to get all the opportunities in the world, and he showed, at least in year one, it sounded like he was willing to be versatile. We at least heard hide nor hair from Michael Terry. We haven't seen hide nor hair really of Jamie French or Khalil Lockett. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I do wonder over the course of the next month what does transpire with that wide receiver room if all four do return, all four starters, I should say. But
what would be your preference? Would you rather if you could write the book, right? If you could write the story of what happens with this wide receiver conundrum here that's happening in the immediate days post National Signing Day. Texas lands Chris Henry Jr. for $1.3 million. They land Cam Coleman eventually in the transfer portal for $1.8 million. Or Chris Henry Jr. goes to Oregon. Now Jaylen Lot doesn't want to go to Oregon, and Texas can get him for $500,000.
Alex, you know me. I love the superstars. I love the freaks. But also, we can't forget that Jaylen Lot has the pedigree, has the track and field background, has the speed, has the jumps, the size, the ability, not to be Decorian Moore, but I think Jaylen Lot at 500,000 gives you a lot left in the kitty to go get some offensive linemen, and it gives you a superstar-esque wide receiver to pair with Dia Bell for the next 3 or 4 years.